So, my state of Virginia recently got reminded, to say the least, about what climate change is really all about. A sudden, out of nowhere, heavy snowstorm that left Virginia drivers stranded on I 95 and other roads for more than 24 hours. Now, I was actually, it's a little anecdotal, okay, but it illustrates a point here. I was actually one of these people who got caught in traffic, but I was only there for a couple hours and I was taking all the different back roads, but so was everybody else, right? I mean, everybody was trying to find a way out of this mess. There was down trees, there were down power lines, there were cops out saying you need to take a detour here, a detour there. It took forever to get home. But this just goes to show you what being unprepared for a natural disaster like a snowstorm can do. Let alone the fact that people have been seeing tornadoes in like a season before tornado season. That doesn't typically happen till the spring, and it doesn't typically happen except in like Oklahoma and upwards of Kansas and places like that, right? But now we're starting to see it a little more east in Kentucky and Tennessee and lower parts of West Virginia, places like that. And that goes to show you the climate is changing. Now, in Virginia's case, they were totally unprepared for the amount of snow they would have to deal with. And I think what this really illustrates is just how necessary funding public response teams is. Okay? Having an emergency response team to climate disasters is essential for any system. I don't care where it is. So you get people up, like say in upstate New York or even in Canada, they're used to things like this, so they're ready for it. But down here, or even in a location like in where they're experiencing tornadoes, they're not ready for it. It doesn't happen on a regular basis, so they don't feel the need to invest in it. But as we can see, when it happens, it's almost Armageddon, at least temporarily. So the importance of funding in federal response teams and programs to deal with these disasters in a moment's notice, we need more emphasis on that. Because, the thing of it is, we kind of built this entire culture, this entire way of life in this country around this assembly line practice of capitalism. Like everything in nature, everything in everyone's life has to revolve around the system of capitalism. And once it slows down, that machine slows down, or in some cases stops completely. And then the people at the top who make all the money are like, whoa, this is unacceptable. We got to continue to make profits. Why is this happening? And so we form all these responses and everything about us in our society around the profit motive of other people. Well, as we can see here, that's not a smart way of going about it. It really isn't. Some people, I think as many as, the last number I heard was 6 people had died because of the snowstorm. They were trapped in their cars 24 hours. They didn't have water. They didn't have food. It was probably hard going to the bathroom. Some of them probably needed medical attention for all we know. I think maybe 1 or 2 of them did. But, if you drain funds that you need to respond to things like this and put them in the pockets of billionaires and corporations, this is the kind of stuff that happens. Okay? People's lives are sacrificed in the name of the profits for the few. That's what needs to change here. And that's what this winter storm reminded us of. Human life is more precious than any amount of corporate profits. And it's certainly more valuable than a billionaire's fat bank account. Because the world doesn't revolve around them, functionally speaking. On paper, and when they buy governments, it may look like it does. But ultimately, it doesn't. All the workers have to do is stop what they're doing and say, nah, we're not lining your pockets anymore. And then, boom, the whole thing's done. And then the people just have to come together and find ways to economically thrive in their communities together. And that's where I hope we head, because, it's that rib again. Because we really can't keep relying on billionaires and the established corporate structure to thrive as a society. We just can't, because they are not interested in society thriving. They're only interested in lining their own pockets at our expense. So I think that most people, and I know this is just myself speaking here, but I would think that most people now, after experiencing the snowstorm, would be like, yeah, we should probably have more of our local and state tax money going towards, disaster relief and prevention and things like that. Take an example, like again, from Buffalo, from Wisconsin, from Minnesota, places like that where they get snow on a more regular basis. And they're like, well, then nobody's going to want to start a business here if we don't give them a big fat welfare check. Well, then good riddance. We don't need them. We can build up an economy on a more worker co-op basis ourselves if we have to. You know, it's like I said, we don't need the employers. Employers need us to make profits for themselves. Why should we have to continue to do that if this is going to be part of the consequences that we suffer for it? People getting stuck in traffic on snowy days, people dying needlessly because they can't get the help they need, because they can't get water, they can't get food, because we didn't fund the response properly enough. Guys, human life is too precious. The environment is letting us know that our capitalistic ways are going to be our undoing. And we really need to take a lesson from the snowstorm here, even though, in a lot of other places, it's like, ha ha, you guys are silly. What are you pushing the panic button for? But, if this kind of event were to happen in, I don't know, say, Arizona, not likely to happen anytime soon, but just for the sake of argument, can you imagine the chaos that would ensue from that? Oh my God, they wouldn't know which way to piss, I'm telling you. But climate change is occurring, and as part of it, at least, is a result of human activity. Others factors are involved as well. So we got to do our best to mitigate that. And like I said in my $100 video, that is a way to incentivize addressing climate change to strengthen the currency that we would use. Another thing is we could, of course, try to make these coastal areas more into filters where we could bring the water in, purify it, and pump it out to reservoirs where wells are drying up, and so on and so forth. But disaster relief is incredibly important. I think it's dangerously underfunded. I think this storm proves it. And we need to be focusing more on getting state and local funds geared towards disaster relief and prevention.